Hello everyone and welcome to this month's presentation on Retail Pro 9 transfers. My name is Charlie West. I am a support technician with Canadian Retail Solutions. We're going to request that any questions that come up during the presentation be held to the very end so we have enough time for everyone who's shown up to review the entire presentation in the time that we have. So, going to jump right into it. Today, we're doing a basic demonstration on Retail Pro 9 and the transfer functionality and options that you have available. So first, let's cover the absolute basic what are transfers in Retail Pro 9. So transfers are basically the movement or transfer of goods between two different inventories, or two, you probably think of them more as locations, but two specific inventories in Retail Pro. Basics is I'm moving goods from either a warehouse to store A, or maybe from store A to store B. And this is facilitated in a lot of different areas in Retail Pro. So you can create purchase orders, for example, for multiple stores at once if you have a centralized distribution system. So you have a warehouse that distributes goods to multiple stores. You can create purchase orders that are marked for, or purchase orders for multiple stores where you allocate the items on the purchase order to individual stores. You can then generate transfer orders and transfer slips from those purchase orders. You might also have let's say a head office or whichever that analyzes inventory and says, okay, well, this store, is a little overstocked on these categories. I'm going to transfer some products from this store to this store to help even it out. Or maybe one store in particular gets a rush on a specific item or vendor, and you need to help refill them before you can order some more products in from your vendor. Lots of different reasons to do transfers. We are going to cover the different ways to set them up and how to actually create some transfers between stores. So to get started, there's a couple different terminology that I want everyone to understand. So if we open up transfers from the main menu of Retail Pro 9, we've got slips, transfer orders, transfer verification. Okay, those are the four main sections of transfers. There's also auto transfer and best replenishment. Those are more advanced features. If you find yourself interested in them, we can definitely get you some more information, but to save time, we're not going to cover them today. So transfer slips are your transfer out slips. They're actually, they actually affect inventory. So it's going to move the inventory out of a specific location. Okay, now Retail Pro 8, you had out slips and in slips. Retail Pro 9 only has out slips. To receive transfers in Retail Pro 9, you use a voucher, just like you would a PO. All right. Transfer orders, very similar to purchase orders. It's the future transfer of merchandise. So I'm planning that we're going to create transfer slips in the future. So that could be, again, where maybe somebody at head office is monitoring stock levels and wants to create a transfer order for the store, so they can open it up, see that transfer order, and generate a transfer slip once they have the goods ready to be moved. All right. Transfer verification is your transfer tracking system. So depending on how we set this up in settings, we need a tool to let us kind of monitor where our transfers are, what stage they're at, whether or not they're being completed. It's just kind of an interface that lets us see the transfer out, the transfer or the voucher if one has been created yet, and then to, if there's ever a mismatch, to resolve those, or if there's an exact match, to update those slips and complete them. So the other parts of transfers that we might need are found in purchasing, and that's our ASN vouchers and our regular vouchers. So ASN vouchers, the most common. So basically you generate an ASN voucher when you create an out slip, which is a ready to receive voucher, basically, that you can generate, you can turn into a voucher with the click of a button. It's going to add all the items, all the quantities that were on that transfer slip from store A. So at store B, they're gonna find that ASN voucher that was created. They're gonna generate a voucher from it. They'll see all the items and quantities, and they can choose to update it as a voucher if they wish, or if they need to modify it. So if something didn't arrive, they can modify it and update it from there. So an ASN voucher is an advanced shipping notice. A lot of stores, if you've never done transfers before, you probably haven't used ASN vouchers and you've always wondered what it is. It is just a pre-packaged or pre-built voucher. So on a regular voucher, you link a PO, you choose what items came in. An ASN voucher is basically, I already know exactly what is coming in. So automatically add all these items and quantities to a voucher. Don't have to receive it exactly. You still have the option there to edit it if you want, but you can just have it automatically process in without even, minimal interaction. Okay, it depends on the trust level of your transfers and how you basically want to verify the goods flowing between the stores. So because of that, I'm going to go into the preferences around transfers because there's a couple different major ways to set up your transfers between stores. So if we go into our system preferences, local preferences, and then transfers, on the general tab, we have our intercompany and intra-company transfers. So intra-company are our regular transfers between stores inside a subsidiary. Intercompany are our transfers between subsidiaries. So if you have multiple subsidiaries and you want to enable transfers between them, you'll need to enable those intercompany transfers. Next, we have the method. So it says automatically create ASN after a slip is created. That is the most common method. And what that means is that when store A creates an out slip, so they've set some items that they're going to transfer from store A to store B, it does not automatically put that stock into store B. It generates that advanced shipping notice that must be received by store B and the items confirmed. There is an option called Voucher Auto Verify, which basically is your minimal, your hands-off process. This means that when store A generates that out slip, the goods are automatically pushed into store B's inventory. There's no checking of the items or quantities, and there's no in-transit times or in-transit location. They go directly from store A to store B. It generates the voucher that receives it into store B the exact moment the out slip at store A is created. Okay, not as commonly used, but sometimes we have customers where the two stores are literally across the road from each other. There's no transit time. It could even be the same people are packing and moving the products across the road. They just so they don't really need to verify that what they shipped is what was in the what was received. They just want to move those products from one store to the other. Okay, so that's where you get the option for auto verify. And what, some other larger chains use it as well, where they just basically the small differences in missed quantities and products and stuff like that aren't worth the time it takes to investigate every single one of those issues and use transfer verification and resolve them. They just want the products moving back and forth as efficiently as possible. Okay, most commonly though, ASN. You'll see the none method. What the none method is if you do have multiple stores and a main that is controlling your inventory, you would generally set the stores to none, and the main would be set to either ASN and voucher and kind of determine the process for all the stores. Okay, so we're going to head and leave it on ASN for now, and I'll show you how the ASN functionality works and cover a couple other options while we're in here. So we've also got our transfer, let's see, our verification rules. So this one is a little bit more confusing until we get into transfer verification, but you'll see in here there's a from and a to, and it says any and any. These can be set to specific stores, and what they basically are is if there's a problem. So if the transfer out does not match the voucher in, so transfer out from store A does not match what store B receives or said they received on the voucher, how do you want to deal with that? Okay, we've got a couple other options in here. Do nothing manual resolution. That means somebody will need to choose a resolution for every single time that happens. you've got make receiving match out slip. So that's where make store B what they said they got, make it match what store A said they sent. I don't care what they think that they got. We're just going to make it match what the original store sent. You've got make out slip match receiving. So that's going to be, okay, I'm going to believe the store that received it, and I'm going to match, or I'm going to update the original store's document to make it match what store B said they actually got. And then you have adjust source or adjust target inventory. So that's where it's going to say, okay, well, let's let the documents be different. And then I want the system to make an adjustment at either the source store or the destination store, just adjust what was missing or extra into or out of inventory. It's just going to create an adjustment. All right, which actually leaves the two documents, the outslip and the voucher, not matching. They're discrepant, but it allows you to complete them because it'll create an adjustment for the missing or extra quantities. All right, so in our case, most commonly we see is the make the outslip match receiving. I'm just going to leave it on that one for now, which is where we're going to believe the destination store. Okay, got a couple other options in here like in transit rules. So in this case, I've got only two stores in my system, store 0 and store 1. So what it's basically saying is when you're shipping from store 0 to store 1, how many days in transit should we leave the product, okay? So when you're using the ASN method, it puts the inventory into a special in-transit location, and we'll go over that, and I'll show you kind of where to see that in inventory. So store A creates an outslip. Those products are moved to in transit until they are received by store B. If you put a day in here in your system preferences, then for here it's 2 days. After 2 days, whether or not they've received it, it's going to push that inventory into the other store, and it's no longer to be as in transit. All right. So, in these cases, typically you would not see these filled in. I'd say most of the time, you just leave them blank or at 0, and in which case it's going to leave those transfers open until the destination store receives them. All right, and we use transfer verification to see which transfers are still open, and you can find out why the store hasn't received it yet, if it ever got sent or lost in the mail, etc. Whereas if you start letting the system take over and push products automatically, then maybe you don't get the opportunity to follow up on some of these issues. Okay, so let's now go into creating a few transfers. So what we've got, I'm going to open up the transfer slips. And we're going to create a new slip. So there's a couple in here that I've done already, but we're going to create a brand new slip. And you can see our interface is a little customized here, but for the most part, it'll be very similar to what you see. Most important fields are our from subsidiary and from store. So I'm sending from subsidiary 1. And if you don't have multiple subsidiaries, you're not sure what that is, don't worry. It's pretty much always going to be from subsidiary 1 to subsidiary 1. Okay, you don't need to worry about that if you just have the one subsidiary. You'll be more focused on the from store code to store code. So in my case, it's from store code 000, which they have said is Sherwood Park, to store 001, which they've got marked as St. Albert. So I'm shipping from Sherwood Park to my St. Albert store. Okay, then I've got my associate on here. I can post transfer order. So if this is based off a transfer order, you can have a transfer order in there as well. Lots of extra fields available if you need to put in comments or instructions or notes, but we're just going to kind of do your most basic transfer here. I've got my from store, my to store. Now I'm going to look up some inventory items. Okay, so my from store is 000, so I can see my store on hand quantities here in inventory. So let's find this one here that I have 10 of. Let's go ahead and say we're going to send 5 of each of these to my St. Albert store. Okay, so I'm going to send them half my inventory. We'll pretend that they have none. I'm going to send them half so that we can spread the inventory across the 2 stores to clear them out. Okay, so down at the bottom, I've got a total price. So that's the total selling price of these items and the total cost of the items. That's basically it. There's not much else to this. When I update this or print an update, if you want a record, it's going to say the inventory will be updated. Okay, and these are our distressed items. So we can look those up after. We had 10 in stock, you'll remember. So if we go into our inventory now, let's find out where they are, because we're on the ASN method, which is where it's going to generate that advanced shipping notice, not automatically receive it into the St. Albert store. Okay, so they're going to go into an in-transit status until they're received. And it was these distressed items here, and then that Elson medium rise item. So let's look this item up in our quantities. Where are these quantities showing up? So the company has 5, Sherwood Park has 5, St. Albert still has 0. So the reason for that is that we have 5 in transit. Okay, so Sherwood Park has 5 in transit out, and St. Albert has 5 in transit in. So those products aren't in the store, they're in transit, pending for St. Albert, and pending out of Sherwood Park. All right, so there's still you can still see where they are in inventory, but they're not in either store. So you don't have to worry about trying to find them at the store using the ASN method and nobody has them yet. Whereas with the automatically generate voucher method, if we had done it that way, that inventory would have been pushed directly into the St. Albert store. So, even if it's not going to arrive by courier till the next day, the staff might see that there's 5 in stock and be looking for these in the back room or whatever. So you need to be careful with the voucher method, whereas the ASN method, more common, is going to require St. Albert to receive the products, which will move them out of in transit and into the St. Albert's on hand. All right, so we're going to do that right now. We're going to have a look at what that ASN looks like. If I go to purchasing, ASN vouchers, we should see an ASN voucher has just been created for today. And we've got one right here under today's date at 11:13, just 2 minutes ago, for 15 items. Okay, so if we have a look at this, we can double check, make sure these are the items that we were looking for. This is the one I want to receive. And then there's a nice, easy generate voucher button. So what an ASN is it's very similar to a voucher. It's just ready to go. So you think of it like it's similar to, it's a piece of a voucher sometimes, but it's just, I know exactly what I want to receive. I don't need to select it from inventory. I don't need to scan it. I don't need to look up what was on the outslip. I know what I want to receive. So that's what we use the ASNs for. I'm going to press generate voucher. You'll see what it's going to do is it's going to open up a new voucher, and then it's going to automatically add all those items from the ASN, which came from the outslip, to my new voucher. Okay, so I don't receive them on the ASN. We're still using a voucher to receive. ASN voucher just lets us, skip a step there. I've automatically added all those items to here. I can still edit it. So if I didn't get 5 of these, I can change this to 4. Okay, now in this case, I am going to do 5 just so we can see what that looks like when it's complete. I'm going to go ahead and update this. So I've got my voucher total at the bottom, which is my total cost. There's some extra fields on there if required, but we're just going to go ahead and update this. All right, we can see that the ASN on here, it does have some information on the from store as well as the slip number. And let's go ahead and look at that inventory again. Now that we've received it, we should see it moved into the St. Albert location and out of in transit. Okay, so down here on our quantities box at the bottom, we can see that St. Albert now has 5, and there's no more pending or transit out or transit in quantities. And if we go into our transfer verification, so again, that's our tool for tracking all of our transfers out and transfers in. We can see here up at the top, it says shipping outslip. So there's 3 outslips in the system, and it has 1 inslip or 1 voucher. So all we're gonna have to do is, we can see right on here, I've got slip number 10595. And it knows its mate is 16791, so it's for 15 items. Down here at the bottom, I've got document 16791, mate 10595, which is that slip number for 15 items. So this is really easy. We can even schedule this task to happen, which basically says, If we choose update match or update all, it's just going to go through really quickly, find any out slips that have a voucher that are an exact match and clear them out of our verification window or our monitoring window because we don't need to worry about them anymore. They match, they're complete, they're done. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and click update all. And it's going to clear out, and we can schedule that so you don't need to be in here updating your matches. And it's just going to clear it out. So that one outslip and that one voucher that matched have now been removed. The two outslips that haven't been received yet are still pending in here. Basically, they were created today, the outslips, and they probably generated ASNs that just haven't been received yet. So they'll stay in here until an ASN is generated or a voucher is generated and they can be updated and cleared out. Now, we talked a little bit earlier about that resolution or that resolve. So sometimes the transfer doesn't match, the transfer that they received, the voucher, doesn't match exactly what the other store said they sent. So somebody's made a mistake. They're either making a mistake when they receive it or they're making a mistake when they sent it. And in that case, you do need to use the resolution, and we'll do that quickly. So I'm going to create a transfer slip. Do this pretty quickly. From store 0 to store 1. Choose some items. I'm going to choose another few items that have 10 in stock again. Okay, so we've got 3 items on our transfer. We'll update it. It's going to generate that ASN. Okay, so we've got that ASN with 15 items on it that we just created, 1120, that was exactly a minute ago, and we're going to turn that into a voucher. All right, except for this time, I'm going to say that they made a mistake and I actually only received 4 of each of these items, and update. Okay. So now if I go back into my transfer verification, I should see that I have 1 outslip for 15 items and 1 inslip for 12 items, in which case they're discrepant because they do not match. So if we go to update all, which only looks for matches, it's going to tell us that it updated 0 documents. So there was no matches in there for it to update. That means we need to do our resolution. Okay, so in inventory, in our case, I did specify a resolution. So if we go ahead and click on resolve, we're going to go ahead and make receiving or make the outslip match receiving and press OK. If we press resolve all, that's when we use the resolve button. But if we press the resolve all button, it's automatically going to use that resolution that I set up, which is to make the outslip match receiving. So you still have a bit of flexibility in there. If you want to, if you know in this specific case what happened, and maybe it was the destination, the receiving store that made the mistake, you can still use resolve to choose that manual method. Okay. Anytime you use resolve all though, it's looking at that system preference that we set up, in which case I said always make the outslip, and the outslip is created at the sending store, always make that match what the receiving store said they got. Okay, and that's also the option that I chose in there. So if we go to our transfers, our verification rules, we can see when any store ships to any store, no matter the cost or the quantity or the amount of items, make the outslip match receiving, okay? And so you can get pretty creative with this if you want to have multiple rules for different situations. So you can say, anytime the cost value is less than $500, do this. Anytime the cost value is, more than $500, maybe it's set to manual resolution. So someone actually has to go in there and choose an option. So they're going to see exactly what happened and they're going to follow up on it. Why on earth did we do a transfer that was out $1,000 at the receiving store? So that's a good option too. Maybe you have a low cost fix for resolve all, and then somebody who's responsible for checking any that are still discrepant, aren't resolved using the resolve all, and can find out what happened. Okay, so you can set up multiple rules in here if needed, using cost or quantity or item count. So you can get pretty creative, if the quantity is out more than 5 or if the item count is out more than a specific amount, but usually it's cost. If the cost is out more than a specific amount, then maybe we need to look into this. So we're going to do nothing, so don't resolve it automatically. Someone has to do it manually. Okay. And that is how it works when we are using the ASN method, okay, and for transfer verification. So remember, transfer verification is just a way of you seeing all your out slips and your in slips or vouchers now in V9, and kind of being able to keep track of them. So as the stores create out slips and vouchers, you'll see these two lists fill up, and you need to update your matches, resolve your discrepancies, and then you can keep an eye on the ones that are still pending. Okay, the other option that we have is to not use an ASN, but to just go ahead and use a voucher. So if I go back into my system preferences, I'm going to set this to voucher auto verify. Go ahead and do that. And quickly, let's have a look at our slips. Okay, you can see in here in our slips that we have 3 slips now. So before, when I did that resolution, I chose to make the out slip match the in slip. So what it did is it actually reversed the original out slip. Okay, so I had 15 on here. It reversed it with this one, and then it created a new out slip for 12 items, which is what I said I received on the voucher. Okay, so it's not just going to edit that existing document. It's going to, the same way we always recommend it changes, it's going to copy it, it's going to reverse it, and then it's going to create a new one that is correct. All right, so let's do one. Now that we're set to voucher, let's go ahead and do another one. So from store 000 to store 001, let's have a look. Okay, so I've got 10 items on here. Let's just have a quick look at these items. So for these legacy color items, I do have a number at St. Albert already. So let's just pretend we're going to clear all these out, move them all from Sherwood Park to St. Albert. Okay, and they're going to have a promotion on them. So I'm going to choose 10, 10, 10. I'm going to get rid of all my stock. And again, I'm going from my from store 000, which is my Sherwood Park store, to my 001 St. Albert. Okay, the bare minimum that we need to run this transfer, and I've got all my quantities I have in stock for these Socialite and boot cuts, these legacy colors, and AG Jesse. So we're going to transfer them all out. Let's update only. Okay, now before it generated an ASN in those products, they sat in that in transit status until they were received. In this case, if we go to vouchers, because we're on the voucher auto verify method, I should see a voucher in here that was just received for those 30 items, because 10 of 3 different items. So that voucher was created 11/26 at exactly a couple seconds ago, pushing that stock into the destination store automatically. There's no involvement, there's no confirmation of the goods, although they are more than welcome to print a packing slip. So they print that transfer order, they put it with the items, ship it. The other store could still review it and always reverse copy and correct that voucher if they need to. But generally with this method, you're saying, okay, we trust you, we just want to get it into that other store's inventory. They can immediately open that box, put it out on the floor, it's in stock, it's ready to go. And if we go to our merchandise inventory, let's check out one of those items and we should see it in stock at the other store and out of stock at our store. Okay, so there's our legacy color, 0, the AG Jesse, and the socialite bootcut. In form view, we can see Sherwood Park has 0, St. Albert has 20. So the products were transferred and automatically pushed into the destination store. If we open up our transfer monitoring, our transfer verification, it doesn't even show up in transfer verification. It's just because that it's always automatic. It's pushed it across and updated it automatically. Okay, so very minimal involvement required with that method, but for some customers, that's exactly what they're looking for. So finally, I want to quickly touch on a few extra options that you have available in your transfer orders. So the first one, or with your transfers, so the first one is transfer orders. So transfer orders, very similar to purchase orders. Okay, in that they don't automatically update inventory. They're not going to move it out into in transit. They're not going to automatically put in the destination store. They're just a plan, like a purchase order, to do a transfer in the future. Okay, so this again might be someone at head office monitoring. That person might say, okay, we need to shuffle. We've got a few categories overstocked at one of our stores. We're going to move some of that inventory over to another store. They plan a transfer order, which the store can then see when they come in, and they can prep and generate a transfer slip, which actually does move the inventory out on their own. So the head office doesn't want to generate that slip because that would automatically move out the inventory. They use what's called a transfer order, and there's other ways to use transfer orders as well. So you'll see on here, we've got one transfer order in the system already. Go ahead and create another one. So instead of my from and to store, I've got my from store 000, and then down at the bottom, I have my allocation. So if you have multiple stores set up, so if I had stores 1 to 10, you'd see all those different 10 stores available on here because transfer orders can be created just like purchase orders can be created for multiple stores at the same time. So I can go ahead and choose my items. And you do need to specify the from store because we have to determine where this stock is coming from. And let's go ahead and say that we've got 5 of these on here. So again, if I had 5 stores and I added 5 to the sale, I could distribute all 5 of those to whichever stores I wanted. Okay, so right now I have 5 items on my transfer order, but I haven't allocated any of them to any of the stores yet. So I still need to do that, in which case I'm just going to allocate all 5 to our St. Albert location. Okay, down in my items allocation window, go ahead and press save. And then from here, let's go ahead and we can also use the item allocation window menu option on the side. Sorry, so a couple different ways to allocate those items. But from here, we can generate a slip. Oh, sorry for my clumsiness. So I'm going to go ahead, say I'm going to generate my slips. I've got different locations available. So because you can specify multiple locations, you can also filter them out. Insufficient quantities. Whoops. Okay, so if we go into, because we were on that voucher method, it's still, when I generated that transfer slip, it automatically created a transfer order or a voucher, because we are still on the voucher method in our system preferences. And it looks like one of the items didn't have enough quantity in order to fulfill, so it just left that item alone. Okay, so that's your transfer orders. The other way to generate a transfer order is from a purchase order or from a voucher. So you'll see on the right-hand menu, you've got an option to generate a TO from your purchase order and also from your voucher. Okay, so you need to have a marked for PO, and if you're not sure what that is, we'll have a purchasing presentation coming out over the next couple months. So, but basically a marked for PO is if you have a centralized distribution system where you have a warehouse distributing your products to your different stores instead of the products going direct to the stores from the supplier. You can set it up so that those products are all destined for the warehouse, and then you use transfer orders to automatically transfer out to the stores as you wish, as you've allocated them. So on a marked for PO, you have all your stores available. You add all the products at, you add all the products at once, and then you allocate them to different stores. So I'm going to send 10 to store A, 10 to store B, and 10 to store C. And then you can generate transfer orders, which is going to look at those allocations and automatically create multiple transfer orders for each store. Okay, those transfer orders can then be generated into transfer slips when the product arrives so that they can quickly push the products out to the destination stores. So you've got an option here, distributed, undistributed, and marked for. So basically what this means is that you're generating, when you generate the transfer order, marked for means that I allocated the items on the PO. I want you to keep that allocation when you generate the transfer order. Okay. If you don't want to keep the allocations you already set up and you want to do them, you want to reassign new ones, you can choose undistributed. And finally, the distributed option, which says, if I have minimum values in my inventory, and minimum values are values you can assign to inventory, saying this is the absolute minimum I want to have in stock. So you can set a min and a max. You can have the distributed method say, ignore what I allocated. I want you to look at my inventory mins and maxes for each store and do your best to fill them as much as possible. So it's going to go through all the stores and try and assign it fairly based on their min quantity. So it depends. You still have some extra options in here depending on how you have your inventory set up. Okay, in which case I'm going to go ahead and do the marked for, because I did already choose allocation on here. Okay, so just a quick review. If I go to item allocation, when I created this marked for PO, I allocated 15 to Sherwood Park and 5 to St. Albert. All right, if you're not sure about that, you don't have multiple, you don't have a centralized setup, don't worry about that. And if we go into our transfer slips, or our transfer orders, sorry. We've got transfer order number 8, created from PO number 778, with 20 assigned and 20 due. So it has not been fulfilled yet. And we can see all the items on here, and they are all allocated to store 001. Okay, that pretty much sums up our presentation today on Retail Pro 9 transfers. So, of course, if you have any questions at all, you can reach us on the support line at 1-866-204-5511. If you are not a current CRS customer, feel free to give us a call if you're interested in any of the support or products that we offer. feel free to give us a call and we can refer you to one of the sales staff. There's also my email on the screen here, charlie@retailbycrs.com. You can also email support@retailbycrs.com as well if you have any questions about Retail Pro 9 transfers. That concludes today's presentation. So thank you everyone who showed up. And otherwise, these presentations, as always, will be available on our YouTube channel and our website, retailbycrs.com. Thanks and have a good day.